Somewhere in your home, there is a window with the light coming through it at half strength. Your brain is reading that light right now. It is using it to decide what time it is, which hormones to release, and whether you should be awake. Every one of those decisions is wrong. You think of your home as shelter. Your body files it as an environment it has no instructions for. Not one system inside you was designed indoors. Your skin was built to manufacture a hormone out of ultraviolet light. Your eyes were built to read the color of the sky. Your lungs were built for air that moves. What you give them is air that circles the same few rooms. It returns to you carrying everything you left in it. The absence of the outdoors is not neutral. Your body does not pause when you take the sky away from it. It comes apart in ways that are specific, measurable, and already underway. Here is the question that runs underneath everything you are about to hear. How long does it take for the systems inside you to start failing once you stop going outside? The answer is not decades. It is not years. For the first system, the answer is 1 day. For the second, 3 days. For the fourth, the damage has already been accumulating for as long as you have lived the way you live now. And the strangest part is that you will feel none of it happening. You will feel the results. You will blame them on stress, on age, on work, on the people around you. In the spring of 2003, 150 people walked into a clinic in Minnesota. Every one of them carried pain that no scan could explain. They had been to specialists. They had been to imaging suites. Most of them had been told, in one phrasing or another, that the pain was in their heads. One doctor ordered a blood test that almost none of them had received. What came back rewrote how a generation of physicians thought about the human body and the sun. Hold on to those 150 people, because their result is the single most important number in this entire story. But their result only makes sense after you understand what light does to you. And that begins with a system so old that it predates eyes. Deep inside your brain, behind the point where your optic nerves cross, sits a cluster of roughly 20,000 neurons. It is smaller than a grain of rice. It is called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It is the master clock that every other clock in your body takes its orders from. Your liver has a clock. Your kidneys have a clock. Your immune cells, your gut lining, your fat tissue, and the muscle in your heart all run on internal timers. None of them can see the sun. They wait for the master clock to tell them what time it is, and the master clock has exactly one input: light entering your eyes. Not any light. The clock is tuned to a narrow band of blue wavelength that dominates the sky in the first hours after sunrise. That is not the part of your eye you see with. It reads that light through a separate set of cells, discovered only in the last 25 years. Those cells produce no vision at all. Their entire job is to answer one question: is it daytime out there? You have been feeding those cells the wrong answer. Step outside on an overcast morning, the kind of gray day you would call dim. You are standing in roughly 10,000 lux. Direct sun on a clear afternoon pushes past 100,000. Your living room, lit well, with every lamp burning, delivers between 100 and 300. Read those numbers again. Your brain is not receiving slightly less light than it evolved for. It is receiving a fraction of 1% of it. The camping researchers measured this directly. In ordinary indoor life, their participants received about 4 times less total light than the same people got outside. That was before anyone compared peak intensity. Your eyes cannot tell you this. Your pupils adjust, the room looks bright, and the illusion is complete. Your master clock is not fooled. It is receiving a signal so weak it cannot lock onto it. Think of a factory that runs 3 shifts a day with no windows and no shift bell. The workers keep working. They keep producing. They have no idea whether it is 9 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon, so the timing of everything drifts. Some machines run early, some run late. Nothing arrives when it should. That is your endocrine system on indoor light. The consequence has a name you already know without knowing it. Your melatonin, the hormone that tells your body sleep is coming, is released on a schedule the master clock sets. Without a strong morning light signal, that release does not fail. It slides later. Every day you spend under weak light, it slides further. Sleep stops arriving as a reflex and becomes a negotiation you conduct with yourself in the dark. You lie there tired and unable to switch off, and you call it stress, and it is chemistry. Serotonin runs on the same fuel. Bright light exposure drives its production, and your body cannot warehouse it. Without fresh light, the stores fall within days. This is why the third day inside feels different from the first. It is not that your mood decayed, it is that a chemical ran out. The scale of this was measured on a population large enough to end the argument. Researchers working with the United Kingdom Biobank tracked more than 400,000 people. They measured daytime light exposure against mental and metabolic health. Low daytime light predicted depression. It predicted insomnia. It predicted circadian disruption across the board. 400,000 people, one variable, and the variable was whether they went outside during the day. You have already met this in your own life. The wall of fatigue that hits in the afternoon and has nothing to do with how you slept. The irritability with a short fuse attached to it. The sense that you are 1 hour behind the day and have been all week. Those are not personality traits. They are readings from an instrument that has lost its calibration signal. And the timing failure does not stay inside your sleep cycle. Your metabolism runs on that clock, and it slows. Your immune response runs on that clock, and it weakens. Every system that depends on knowing what time it is starts making its decisions at the wrong hour. A body that does not know when to be awake also does not know when to repair itself. That is one system. It is the fastest to break and the fastest to fix. The second system does not drift. It empties. Ultraviolet light of a specific wavelength strikes the surface of your skin. A molecule of cholesterol sitting in your skin cells absorbs that energy. It physically changes shape. That is the beginning. The altered molecule travels to your liver, where an enzyme modifies it again. From your liver, it moves to your kidneys, where a final conversion turns it into a hormone your body can use. Most people file vitamin D under nutrition, a thing you get from food, a thing in a pill. That is the wrong category entirely. What your skin makes is not a vitamin. It is a steroid hormone, chemically related to cortisol and testosterone. It is also the only hormone in your body that requires sunlight as a raw material. Once active, it binds to receptors in nearly every tissue you have. In your bone, where it controls whether the calcium you eat gets absorbed or passes straight through you. In your immune cells, where it regulates how aggressively they respond. In your muscle. In your gut lining, in the lining of your blood vessels. Through those receptors, it influences the expression of over 200 genes, 200 separate instructions in your own DNA, turned up or turned down, based on how much sunlight reached your skin. Consider what that number means for a moment. A hormone that alters 200 genetic instructions is not a supplement your body appreciates. It is infrastructure. When the supply falls, the failure does not appear in one place. It appears everywhere those receptors sit, at low intensity, all at once, which is precisely why it is so difficult to recognize. Bone that absorbs less of the calcium passing through it, muscle that recovers more slowly than it should, immune cells that respond with less precision. None of those is dramatic enough to send you to a doctor. Together they produce a person who describes themselves as run down and cannot explain why. And there is a detail here that makes the whole system harder to escape than it first appears. Here is the part that removes your last excuse. The specific wavelength required for that first reaction is ultraviolet B. It does not survive ordinary window glass. You can sit in a sunlit room all afternoon, feel warmth on your arms, watch the light cross the floor. You will produce nothing. The glass strips out the exact frequency your skin needs and lets everything else through. Your body registers a bright day. Your skin registers midnight. Artificial light does not trigger the reaction either. Not the ceiling fixture, not the lamp, not the screen you are looking at now. There is no substitute, no workaround, and no way to manufacture the raw material internally. Your body has one supplier and you have stopped visiting. The deficiency that follows does not announce itself. There is no moment where you feel it arrive. It accumulates in silence, and then surfaces wearing a disguise. It surfaces as fatigue that sleep does not touch, as aches with no injury behind them, in the lower back, the hips, the ribs, as a mood that will not lift regardless of what you do to lift it. Every one of those symptoms belongs to a dozen other conditions, and that is the trap. A deficiency that presents as tiredness, low mood, and vague pain gets attributed to your life rather than your body. You are working too hard. You are getting older. You are stressed. Every one of those explanations is plausible, and every one of them points away from your environment. Every one of them is free to give, and none of them requires anyone to order a blood test. The deficiency continues. It deepens quietly while the conversation moves on to sleep hygiene, workload, and coping strategies. The one measurement that would settle it is never taken, which is how 150 people ended up in a Minnesota clinic being told their pain was psychological. Dr. Greg Plotnikoff was a researcher at the University of Minnesota. He had spent years studying this hormone when those patients came through his door. They had persistent musculoskeletal pain. Standard treatment had failed on all of them. The prescriptions had stopped working, and the specialists had run out of things to scan. He measured their vitamin D, the one number that is almost certainly missing from your own medical record. 93% of them were severely deficient. Not low, not borderline, not sitting marginally under the number a laboratory would flag. 93 out of every 100 people in that room were running on close to nothing. Every one of them had been told their suffering had no physical cause. Sit with the shape of that for a moment. These were not people living in caves or working night shifts in mines. They were ordinary adults with ordinary jobs and ordinary homes. They had committed no crime against their own health. They had done the thing you are doing right now. They had stayed inside, in perfectly reasonable buildings, under perfectly adequate lighting. Their bones were starving, and their doctors were writing referrals to psychiatry. The pain was real the entire time. It was the diagnosis that was imaginary. That study did not prove that sunlight cures chronic pain, and nobody should claim it did. It proved something more unsettling. It proved that a deficiency created by modern architecture can present as a condition modern medicine reads as psychological. Your walls can write symptoms into your body that your physician will attribute to your mind. 2 systems down: light and the hormone that light builds. The third system does not miss something you failed to receive. It receives something you never agreed to. The average person in a developed country spends around 90% of their life indoors. Add the commute, the office, the shop, the car, and the number climbs higher. Your lungs process the indoor environment for roughly 22 hours out of every 24. The Environmental Protection Agency has measured the pollutant concentration of that environment. It runs 2 to 5 times the level found in the outdoor air of the same city. In some homes, the measurement reaches 100 times the outdoor level. Read that against your instincts. You closed the door to keep the city out. The city was cleaner. The reason is a matter of physics rather than misfortune. Outdoor air has wind. Every pollutant released outdoors begins diluting the instant it exists, dispersed across an atmosphere with no ceiling. Your home has no wind. It has a sealed envelope, built for thermal efficiency, and a fan that moves the same volume of air in a loop. Whatever enters that loop stays in it, and a great deal enters it. Your furniture is releasing volatile organic compounds right now, off-gassing slowly from adhesives, foams, and finishes. That process continues for years after purchase. Pressed wood releases formaldehyde. Flame retardants migrate out of upholstery and settle into household dust. Your cleaning products release solvents every time you use them, in a room with the windows closed. The smell you call clean is the compound entering your bloodstream. Cooking generates fine particulate matter, small enough to travel deep into lung tissue and cross into circulation. Your clothing and bedding shed microplastic fibers continuously. They settle into the dust you disturb every time you move, and you inhale them for 8 hours a night. You are not living in a sealed room. You are living inside a slow chemical reaction, and you are the part of it that breathes. Your cardiovascular system registers this before you do. Research published in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health found that indoor air pollution directly raises blood pressure, not as a long-term statistical association across a lifetime, as a measurable physiological response to the particulate load in the room. The mechanism is inflammation. Fine particles that reach your bloodstream provoke an immune response inside the vessel walls themselves. Inflamed vessels stiffen. Stiff vessels raise pressure. Raised pressure, sustained across years, is the single most common route to cardiovascular disease on Earth. The World Health Organization estimates that household air pollution contributes to around 3.2 million premature deaths every year. That figure excludes outdoor air entirely. 3.2 million people annually from the air inside their own walls. And this is the system that produces the symptoms you have stopped noticing. the headache that arrives every afternoon in the same room, the sinus pressure you have accepted as your baseline, the fatigue that survives coffee. You have interpreted all of it as a fact about your body. It is a fact about your building. There is one more system. It explains why your body has begun attacking things that were never a threat. Your immune system is not a wall. It is not a fortress with guards on it, and it does not arrive fully assembled. It is a student, and it requires an education. That education happens through contact. Over millions of years, the human immune system developed alongside a specific community of organisms: bacteria in soil, fungal spores in leaf litter, microbes in untreated water and on plant surfaces, microbes in the fur and breath of animals, and on the hands of everyone you lived close to. Those organisms are not enemies. They are the curriculum. Their constant, harmless presence is the material your immune system learns from. It is how your body acquires the most important skill it will ever have: the ability to tell a genuine threat from a passenger. Graham Rook, a professor at University College London, gave this idea its name. He called them the old friends. In 2013, the argument was laid out in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. The full weight of the evidence sat behind it. The logic is short, and it is brutal. Remove the teachers and your student does not become tougher. Your student becomes anxious. An immune system with no calibration does not sit idle. It reclassifies. It begins treating harmless proteins as invaders because it has never been given the reference material to know the difference. That is what an allergy is, not a weakness. It is a trained response aimed at the wrong target by a system that was never trained properly. If you developed an allergy in adulthood that you did not have as a child, that is what you are looking at. Your immune system did not turn on you. It ran out of material to learn from and started guessing. The same failure, turned inward, produces autoimmune disease. The immune system, starved of external material to learn from, turns its attention to the tissue it is supposed to protect. And the epidemiology matches the theory with uncomfortable precision. Inflammatory disease, allergy, and autoimmune conditions have risen steeply in high-income countries. They rose over the same period your part of the world moved indoors. In populations that still live in daily contact with soil, animals, and open air, the same conditions remain rare. Children raised on working farms show dramatically lower rates of asthma and allergic disease. The comparison is to children in the same country, in the same decade, raised in sealed urban apartments. Children who play in dirt develop higher populations of regulatory T cells. Those are the immune cells whose entire function is to suppress an overreaction before it starts. The farm child is not lucky. The farm child was educated, and nothing about that education required effort. No child on a farm was enrolled in anything. They walked through an environment, and the environment did the teaching. Set that against what your home offers as an alternative. House dust contains something like 9,000 different microbial species, which sounds like abundance until you ask what those species are. The indoor microbial community is dominated by human skin cells, human-associated bacteria, pet dander, and the residue of synthetic materials. It is a room full of you. Recycled, concentrated, and biologically flat. Your immune system evolved to meet soil bacteria, plant matter, and the microbial life of open air. Instead, it meets the contents of your vacuum cleaner. The command center for this entire system sits in your gut. Most of your immune cells live along the intestinal lining, in constant negotiation with the trillions of bacteria that live there. That community regulates inflammation across your whole body. It also manufactures the majority of the serotonin circulating in you, not your brain, your gut. Which means the diversity of bacteria in your intestine is connected to the stability of your mood. Outdoor exposure is one of the strongest drivers of that diversity. A varied environment produces a varied microbiome. A varied microbiome is a calm one. An indoor life narrows it, and a narrow microbiome is an inflamed, reactive, unstable one, and your gut is listening to your air. Harvard researchers studied households in Uganda, where better lighting reduced indoor combustion and improved the air. The gut microbiomes of the women living there changed within weeks. Their respiratory health improved in parallel. The connection runs along what researchers call the gut-lung axis. It is a two-way signaling relationship between the tissue that breathes and the tissue that digests. Change the air and you change the bacteria. Change the bacteria and you change the inflammation. Change the inflammation and you change how the person feels, sleeps, and thinks. You are not a body that happens to occupy an environment. You are a continuous chemical exchange with one. At this point, the argument sounds airtight, so it is worth stopping to break it honestly. Outdoor air is not clean. In a dense city, it carries traffic emissions, industrial output, and particulate loads that cause real cardiovascular harm. The claim is not that the street is pure. The claim is narrower and better supported. The street is diluted and your bedroom is concentrated. Sunlight is not harmless either. Ultraviolet radiation damages DNA in skin cells. Cumulative unprotected exposure raises the risk of skin cancer, and that is not a marginal risk invented by sunscreen companies. The same wavelength that builds the hormone also breaks the cell. Both facts are true at once. Your body sits between two hazards, and there is no dose that eliminates both. And the pill does not solve it. Supplemental vitamin D corrects a blood measurement, and for people who are severely deficient, it is a genuine intervention. What it does not do is reproduce the rest of what happened on that walk. It does not deliver the light signal to your master clock. It does not expose your skin to the antimicrobial responses that ultraviolet exposure activates independently of vitamin D. It does not put a single soil organism anywhere near your immune system. Supplementation treats one line item on a bill with many entries. That is the honest position. Not that the outdoors is medicine and the indoors is poison. That your body was calibrated by an environment it no longer encounters. Every system that took its instructions from that environment is now operating on estimates, which raises the question underneath all four systems. Why does removing one thing break so many separate mechanisms at once? Because they were never separate. Every system described here was tuned by the same environment over the same span of time, using the same handful of signals: light, movement, air that changes, and organisms that vary. Your ancestors did not have a roof between themselves and the sun. For the overwhelming majority of the time your species has existed, waking meant the sky, and sleeping meant the dark. There was no version of a human life in which those inputs were optional. Your biology was written by that rhythm. It has not been rewritten by your ceiling. There was never a plan B. Evolution does not build a backup system for a condition that never occurred. A human being spending 90% of their life inside a sealed box is new. It did not exist until roughly the last century, which is why your body does not treat indoor living as a challenge to adapt to. It treats it as a signal failure. Every system reports the same absence, and every system responds by degrading in its own particular direction. Your body is not broken. It is functioning correctly, in an environment it was never built to encounter. Correct function in the wrong environment looks exactly like illness. Everything you have heard so far describes the damage. Here is what almost nobody tells you about it. In 2017, Kenneth Wright and his team at the University of Colorado published a study. It appeared in the journal Current Biology. They took a group of adults living ordinary modern lives, measured their circadian rhythms, and found what you would now expect. Their internal clocks were running late. Their bodies believed the evening was earlier than it was. Melatonin arrived late, sleep arrived late, and morning arrived before their biology was ready. Then the researchers did the one thing your life has quietly deleted. They sent them camping. No phones and no screens. No artificial light of any kind. 2 days and 2 nights with nothing between them and the sky but weather. Then the team measured their rhythms again. The internal clocks of those participants had shifted nearly 2.5 hours earlier. 48 hours. Months of drift, accumulated slowly under weak indoor lighting, reversed over a single weekend. Their melatonin began rising almost 2 hours earlier in the evening. They fell asleep earlier without deciding to. They woke earlier without an alarm. Nobody changed their bedtime, their diet, their habits, or their willpower. Nobody was given a supplement, a prescription, or a piece of advice about discipline. They changed the light hitting their eyes, and their biology followed within 2 days. Hold that against your own last attempt to fix your sleep. The sleep schedule you tried to enforce, the earlier alarm you set, the screen you put down at 11. All of it was an effort to overrule a clock by argument. These people did not argue with the clock. They handed it the one input it has been asking you for. Wright described the results as striking, and he was measuring the most stubborn system in the body. The master clock does not move easily. It is designed to resist disruption. An organism whose sense of time could be knocked over by a passing cloud would not survive. It moved anyway. That is how strong the signal is, and how completely your building blocks it. And the reversal is not limited to the clock. Urban preschool children were given 10 weeks of regular access to natural outdoor environments. Their gut bacteria changed measurably. They gained microbial species associated with reduced inflammation and improved serotonin production. 10 weeks. In children whose immune systems were still being written, using the same machinery that is sitting idle in you. The vitamin D system responds on its own timeline, measured in weeks of regular exposure rather than months. The air in a sealed room can be transformed by opening a window. That is the least sophisticated medical intervention available to you, and one of the most effective. Put those findings beside each other and the shape of the answer appears. Every system that indoor living degrades is a system that responds to being fed again. None of them require a decade to answer. Your body has not written you off. It has been waiting. There is a second implication hiding inside those recovery timelines, and it is less comfortable than the first. 2 days of open sky moved the most protected clock in your body by 2.5 hours. The reverse is equally true. The signal is that strong in both directions, which means the drift did not require anything extreme to produce it. No neglect, no isolation, no unusual choices. It required an ordinary week in an ordinary building. The same sensitivity that makes your body so quick to recover is what made it so quick to fall out of alignment. You are not dealing with a system that resists change. You are dealing with a system that is exquisitely obedient to whatever environment you place it in. Return to the question this all started with. How long does it take for the systems inside you to start failing when you stop going outside? Your clock begins drifting within a single day of weak light. Your serotonin stores fall within about 3 days. Your vitamin D declines over weeks and hides itself as fatigue and unexplained pain for months. Your immune system loses its calibration over years, so gradually that you experience the outcome as a personality, a set of allergies, a body that has become sensitive with age. And every one of those failures is running in you at the same time, in parallel, right now in the room you are sitting in. Consider the list you have been carrying. The fatigue that follows you through the afternoon, the sleep that refuses to arrive on time, night after night. The ache with no injury attached, the allergy that appeared in adulthood out of nowhere in a body that had never had one, the blood pressure that keeps climbing, the mood you have been managing rather than solving. Those are not 6 separate problems. They are one absence reporting itself 6 different ways. If you want the full answer to that question, the next investigation takes the other half of the equation, the 8 hours of darkness you have also stopped giving your body properly. What happens inside you when the night is never fully dark? That story is stranger than this one. You did not build this environment. You inherited it, from a century of architecture designed to seal out weather and seal in warmth. It did those jobs superbly. Nobody engineered your home to make you ill. It simply happened that the thing it was built to exclude was the thing you run on. There is a version of this story that ends with a lecture about hiking. That is not the version the evidence supports. Nobody in the Colorado study trained for anything. Nobody in Minnesota was cured by an expedition. The variable in every one of these findings is contact. Light on your eyes in the first part of the day. Ultraviolet on bare skin in whatever amount your particular skin tolerates safely. Air that came from outside a building. Ground that is not a floor. That is the entire intervention. It has no price, no equipment, and no version of it that requires you to become a different kind of person. The finding buried inside all of this is not that the outdoors is good for you. That word is too small and too soft for what the evidence describes. The finding is that your body has no indoor setting. It has one operating mode, written across millions of years under an open sky. It is running that mode right now, behind a closed door and a pane of glass, waiting for a signal that never comes. You were never meant to be shelter from the world. You were meant to be in it.